Welcome, everybody, to In the Buff.
In the Buff.
Today, we've got your host, Chris. We've got John, Scott, and Cody here as well.
We're all together for the first time in a long time.
I'm a fan of this, like... I like the NPR. Like, we got Scott, Chris, Cody, John is here as well.
It's not quite a whisper, but it is just very soft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like this is like my natural speaking tone. I like to keep, like, when I'm speaking to my mom, like, ooh.
Oh, I use a very different tone when I'm speaking to my mom.
I bet you do, you fucking pervert.
That's not what I meant at all, but okay.
So,
I would love to have some comments.
we're all dreadfully nude.
Dreadfully. Baby, no, we're not.
That just gave me a headache. That gave me a headache.
Comments, huh?
We can do some comments here.
Whose corner is it?
It's my corner.
It's his circle
God.
today.
First comment here from Lordran. Oh, there's nothing else there. Just Lordran.
Lordran!
Lordran, no!
Why? We can't do this.
Can't keep doing this. Scott recently introduced us to the Root Beer No a video, and we've just been yelling it at each other.
Everything that is 2 syllables now.
No, root beer!
Pizza, no!
I just said 2 syllables, Chris.
Why is he so upset about
There's
that?
2 syllables in there.
There's
Pizza
3
Hut.
syllables in Pizza Hut.
Okay, 2 plus 1. There's 2 though.
Oh, yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
There's at least 2.
You're gonna make me sick again.
Final
All
Fantasy
that cake
X
is gonna make me sick.
Riku Celestial Weapon Guide God Hand video. Fantastic guide, my friend. You're welcome.
Wow.
Friend?
Who left that comment?
Lordran!
Oh, yes.
We just said his name and just moved on. This is why we're not allowed to be in a room together.
How about another comment?
Sure.
I would love that.
Here's 3 comments from the same guy on the same video.
And it's not Kyle?
It's not Kyle.
Oh my god.
Holy shit.
Kyle doesn't watch the
What
Final
video
Fantasy
is it?
video. It's the. If you just let me talk, Jonathan, please, please,
video?
Sean. Final Fantasy X Waka Celestial Weapon Guide World Champ. We have gone so far away from the NPR tone.
Back on track.
Eat my ass, Ken Burns.
This is from Jay Brown. He says, I don't mind Blitzball, man. I don't see how I haven't had over 450 battles. Does Waka have to be in the party for all of them? Because if so, I'm kind of fucked.
No,
I don't think so.
he does not.
He replied to himself in another comment saying, I don't know, I guess 450 is a lot, but I've done some significant grinding, like at least 15 hours or more of it. Sorry to hear that. I don't know what to tell
And
you.
then his third comment is...
His third comment is, Blitzball is so easy, lol. Just hug the left side and pass with Jasu to Wedge and Tidus, and it'll be almost too easy, especially with Jamal at goalie. The only thing I do different is put Zelk Ronso at center. He's so bulky, and he comes with tackle slip, which means him damn near impenetrable, but he's slow as shit, lol. IDK, I score like 6-8 times a game and give up no goals, so it's foolproof plan, I promise.
Well, as long as he's having fun.
That's the important. There's a lot of different ways to win a Blitzball.
He said it was boring, though.
You could have Waka. You could have
boring? I
Tidus.
thought
You
He said
could
it
have
was
Brother.
easy.
Easy. Oh.
You could have
Brother.
Wedge.
Rocket League is easy, and I'm not bored with it.
I get bored with you sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm easy.
No, you're not.
He actually is quite easy, but no one wants him. That's the problem.
If somebody would just say yes. Final Fantasy X Lulu Celestial Weapon Guide Onion Knight video from Lordran again.
Oh my god.
It's just the
I had to physically stop myself.
it's just the clapping hands emoji and then a sparkle emoji.
Great.
All right.
And
And
thank you.
the final comment from Final Fantasy X Omega Ruins Guide video from Hi There.
Hi there!
No, why?
He said, do you mean Masamune? Not Masamune!
it's gonna be one of those where it just slowly but surely it just becomes a faraway man yelling something you can't quite hear.
It's a great sound. Just.
I do remember you pronouncing it that way in the video.
Yeah.
Weird. Well, thank God we're through those comments, huh?
Yeah.
Here we are on the other side. Better for it.
That's from a speech impediment John has had as a child when he first played the game.
I'm sorry to hear that, John.
Kind of outed him right in front of everyone. He told you that in confidence.
Someone please explain to me the root beer meme.
I don't know. From? It's a guy saying a root beer is falling off of a surface, and a guy's going, root beer, no, root beer.
Can we just play the clip? It's only like 30 seconds, isn't it?
Yeah, we could probably splice it in there.
Yeah.
Send me a link.
Listen to how good of my impression is of him. Root beer, no. I think it's pretty okay.
It's pretty good. I
Who's
don't know,
editing
Chris.
this one?
Somebody is.
I was just curious.
It's Cody's
Corner.
We can go back to talking about Chris's shirts if you want.
Here's the thing, though. It's going to be really all of our corners. Because I think I really want to hear all of you guys' opinions about...
Dwarf sex?
About dwarf sex.
So just real quick, if you kind of don't listen to the D&D ones, just shut it off. Hey, leave a like, though, and a comment. That'd be great. Telling us to shut it off.
See you later,
shut
Carson.
the fuck up about D&D. That'd be great.
This is an interesting one, though, because it doesn't have really anything to do with our normal D&D campaign.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh! Sorry, I just remembered one more thing before we actually go into the D&D thing, and I don't want Carson to leave yet. I watched the live stream of your football game last weekend.
And?
They lost 14-7.
Oh my god!
Wow, you don't even have to be there. You just need to be watching.
I know, it's incredible.
Power of a hex.
Alright, let's start talking about D&D.
I still
You're
think
an
you should,
evil man.
You should watch it
I'm
from the other
secretly-
team's side.
He might have already turned it off by now, and I kind of hope he did. I'm going to secretly go to every game that is nearby. Because I have taken every Friday night off. So I am available for the games.
Just terrible.
And I'm just going to go sit on the other team's sideline. And I'm just going to watch him have a fucking 1-9 season.
I don't want the streak to end. And it seems like you're going to make it end because there is no streak.
Well,
it's
here's the
self-fulfilling prophecy, John.
Sure. Okay, whatever. But here's the thing. I don't want to... Like, he wants me to go to the last game of the year. Because they're supposed to blow out Beaver Creek by like 1,000 points.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think they've lost to Beaver Creek in like 50 years or something. Yeah. So can't wait for that to happen. But I don't want that to be the reason why they win is because they're expected to win by a blowout. Yeah. I want to go to a game where they're not expected to just easily win. And like Northmont, they're supposed to get fucking creamed by Northmont this week.
Freezing.
Last year when I showed up to the Northmont game, only game I went to, it was tied 7-7. I'm in the concession stand late in the first quarter is when I showed up. And as soon as I get in the concession stand line, I hear, Northmont recovers the football for a touchdown. And I'm like, oh boy.
This is suspiciously similar to the story from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I know, right? It's incredible.
Maybe it's the concession stand.
I wasn't at the concession stand for the Troutwood game.
You tried to, though.
I did try to, that's right. Mm-hmm. I did not stay in that line. I did see a kid bust his fucking face open.
Awesome.
Real quick, if you got through all that and it didn't make any sense, on the previous episode, John shared a story about how he has a hex on his nephew's football team, and every game he goes to, they lose.
No.
Every game any of your family
yes.
is in.
Yes.
And you are watching, they lose.
Yep.
Let's hope they don't go pro. You know.
That'd be terrible.
Then people's livelihoods could be at stake.
I would bet on that. I would make money off of this.
Well, if they,
I would absolutely do that.
If they got into the Bengals, then it's fine.
No joke. If this somehow continues and he loses every game that I watch through college and he makes it into the NFL, I ain't trying to. I don't want to be that guy, but like if there's a money opportunity here,
you're sick.
I'm doing it.
Could I get in on that action?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't
know how much
hopelessly poor.
It works until I blow like $10,000, and then it's like, well, streak had to end sometime. I'm broke.
Speaking about betting, I've been thinking about getting into some online gambling.
See this? I kind of got this feeling. You've been talking about going to poker nights recently, and there was like this thought in the back of my mind, like, this is the start. This is the start of something. He's going to start climbing up this hill, and then he's going to ask us for help when he can't get down.
But he used to do rock climbing. He gave up on that by the time he gets addicted.
I'm sorry. How are you descending?
You gotta trust your belayer.
There you go.
You
Should
should
say
trust
player
me,
or
though.
player?
Belayer.
Belayer.
That's
What
the
is
guy
that?
that's holding your rope.
Oh, okay.
They belay you.
That's what it's called.
No, not bully. Belay. Like they belay.
Boy!
D&D. Okay, huh? D&D. Don't. I already can't swat at the gnats.
Are you gonna swat at me?
What was your corner about?
So my corner was gonna be about this extended one-shot that I cooked up for all of your guys' backup characters in our main campaign.
I guess technically it was a full-on 3-shot.
I guess so.
I know that feeling.
We had half one tonight, half one after a previous session,
And then two
and
in the middle.
2 in the middle.
Yep. And the premise was that all of the guys' backup characters were going to go on a mystery, or on a mission to solve a murder mystery. They go to a nearby city where they've been contracted by a homicide detective who's having some trouble figuring out a suspicious murder. And the whole one-shot was them gathering clues, interrogating witnesses, maybe a little bit of double-crossing in there. Who knows if it was related or not. And then finally solving the mystery more or less. Not to spoil the ending, but we're kind of going to do a bit of a debrief.
Have we talked about our backup characters at
No,
all?
not at all. I was going to say we should,
I know.
we should
I
go
think
our team.
Aiden was mentioned at some point in our
Definitely.
stories. People kept following that.
Yep.
But Aiden was the leader of this group, like Tybalt's leader of the main group. Just a military-raised guy that shoots a crossbow.
Sure.
Simple as that.
Bit of a tragic backstory.
Bit of a tragic backstory.
He was
it wasn't super tragic until our campaign happened.
Right. No, that's a very recent backstory. He was involved in a very big battle somewhere, and he kind of got blamed for some bad decisions that he made, got some people killed, and he got demoted and kind of sent off to some backwater
Pretty
village.
severely demoted.
Yep.
Yeah.
Your turn.
So my character was Godfrey of Bouillon, which is the smallest state on a way different part of the empire, and he is this young fledgling knight in this holy order, whose job it is to protect the innocent.
What is Godfrey?
Aiden's a human, if I didn't say that.
Yeah,
I
we're
always talk about class.
Ranger.
he's a cavalier fighter and oath of devotion paladin. And so that means he does both mediocrely.
Listen, being 2 levels in fighter and 6 levels in wizard, you received more flame tonight than I do on
Well,
average.
The problem is just, especially for any class, we've talked about this, and I don't want to gamify it too much. I want you to do what you want to do, but you would have literally been doing twice as much damage if you had just taken one more level in Paladin.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a squire with him,
Wolfram.
and
That is a good word.
Yeah, that is a good word. There was a bit of a ambush, betrayal.
Calm down. Spoilers. That's later in the episode.
Well, I can say
What's Wolfram?
What happened
Is
to
he
No,
a human?
we can say that later. What is
yes.
Wolfram? Who is your boy?
he was a 3/5, 4/5
Yeah.
of
Something
a
like that.
Human
character
being?
level.
Yep.
Human.
He was that close, one day away from being a Paladin.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Basically, since Godfrey became a paladin, he had a squire that kind of leveled up as Godfrey leveled up, and once he leveled up 5 times with Godfrey, he would become a level 1 character.
Yeah.
with his own class and stats and everything. But until then, he was just kind of a rinky-dink commoner who brushed Godfrey's horse and carried the torch and
the javelins.
And the javelins, and kind of did all of the mucky work involved with being a knight errant. And that leaves...
My character was, he's a wizard. His name is Levi Stranger, spelled stranger. Or is that his name?
Levi was a bit of a wild card during this quest.
He's an odd one, I'll say. I knew this was a one-shot character. I wasn't going to... He was always going to be weird, as he's my backup. He was always going to be weird, and I knew going in this was a one-shot, so I turned it up to about... He was going to be like a 6. I turned it up to a fucking 11.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
He's weird, and... Because I knew he was only going to be around for this session. Well, this thing. And he's a conjuration wizard. Specifically, he summons demons, which is not cool in
Chris,
Cody's world.
Put up pictures of everybody as we're describing them.
Do we have
Yeah.
pictures of...
I can get pictures.
Hell yeah, you made minis. I forgot.
Yeah.
You did. So, I'm going to suck John's dick real quick. If you're
Please do.
watching the podcast,
I'm naked.
he painted those fucking minis. He actually painted those minis, and they look that great. They look as great as you think they do.
The one that I use for Godfrey just looks like it's straight, like rendered and ripped right out
Incredible.
of Dark Souls, and it's so fucking cool.
If anybody's curious, almost every single one of those minis came from Loot Studios.
There's... Oh, maybe put a link in the description.
Put a link.
There's... When it comes to summoning demons... one of the material components to summon a demon with the spell is straight up blood from a humanoid who has died within the last 24 hours. So I knew going in, Stranger had to be a little bit edgy. On top of that, he had to be a little bit not the best guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's not.
You played him like an agent provocateur
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Luckily, Agent is that honorable soldier type to balance us
You mean
out.
Aiden?
What'd I say?
I thought you said Asian.
Did I say Asian? I meant Aiden. Listen, that cake's doing a number to me right now.
Oh my god.
I shouldn't have that second slice.
So you all get to the city in question. It's in the middle.
Well, there's a couple more characters to introduce.
Oh, right. So Justin's character his name was Theron. He was a monk and a bit of a drunk.
Yep.
That was kind of his primary personality trait. And then Andy's character, Elizabeth, we've already discussed. She was a Twilight cleric. And then the final member of the party, our friend Monsi, actually created a character for this one shot named Kalisura. He was an elf ranger.
What kind of ranger was he?
Drake Warden.
Ooh.
He didn't have a dragon.
Yeah, I reflavored it because
Okay.
to make it more in line with a sylvan flavor.
Okay.
Magic
That's-
Hawk.
Magic
Oh, the
Hawk.
Magic Hawk.
Yep.
Fuck that hawk.
Magic Hawk.
So you guys make it to this city. It's also middle of winter, so there's, heavy winds, snow coming down. It's very cold. You guys are pretty far north, so it's a frigid winter.
It's fine. I got a thermal cube.
That's fair.
And you guys are sent to investigate the mysterious death of a gnome scholar here in the city.
Matthias Bello.
Yep.
And this happened a week before we showed up.
Yep.
So the clues that were at the crime scene was that the gnome's head had been smashed in, and then his body had been rearranged into a very particular pose, almost like he was like in a coffin.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't mangled or anything like that. He was very deliberately placed in the middle of his apartment. And in his mouth was a scroll with some dwarvish writing on it. And
Cody produces this scroll with a bunch of German text on it. And we, obviously, none of us know German because we're simple. And that's German is dwarvish in this world.
Right. I substitute German for dwarvish in mine, just like I use French for elvish or Hungarian for gnomish.
Yeah, we end up getting this scroll from the lead investigator who had it translated. We get the translation, and the first thing Aiden says is, "Can we get this translated ourselves? Do any of you guys know German or Dwarvish?" And 2 people in our party were like, "Yeah, we know Dwarvish." And sure enough, the translator had. I'm not going to say that it was a mistake. They had assumed something that was either a mistake or they had assumed something and translated it a certain way that they expected it to be.
Mm-hmm. And the words on the scroll were basically just like proverbs and like simple little parables and life lessons. You know, things like be a good person, you know, always do your best, that kind of stuff. And the last line was translated as voice of my voice. And by the investigator, but then when the team got a hold of it, they translated it as clay of my clay.
Because tone and tone are 2 different words.
But just 1 letter off.
Yeah.
And that's actually something that I looked for in German.
You did great.
Is that they those 2 words are very similar.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know if anybody is going to think that there was a mistranslation, but you guys immediately were like, did this get translated correctly?
It's the kind of thing that, like, all of the pieces, we'll get to it later, but all of the pieces were like, oh shit, that's sitting there. And then suddenly it was like, it had a place to connect to. We're like, that's why it was clay of my clay.
This was such a later piece of the puzzle that we found immediately, and it was like, I don't know what we do with this, but
it's also crazy that you found it because the only 2 people who know Dwarvish didn't have like very good investigation skills, so it was just a very lucky roll that you guys were able to find this oddity in the text.
I do love that now in your game and in Kyle's game. I've stumped a secret immediately after finding it. In Kyle's game, he had a secret door that just very clearly there was light showing underneath. And I just look over and there's a table on the side. And I'm like, there's nowhere else for a secret door to be here. Kyle, I'd like to like run my fingers across the bottom of the table for a button. And he's like,
God damn it.
Okay. You feel a switch and the door opens. And I'm like, perfect.
Like, part of it, as a DM, from a DM's perspective, you get a little peeved that that you guys figure out something so quickly, but then that quickly gets tempered like, well, then why did I put this in here?
Right.
If not for you guys to find it.
Yeah.
And speaking for me, I'm not just trying to, inflate your ego here. This was a very satisfying mystery to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I knew last night, probably like at the beginning, after all the drama that happened at the beginning of last night, I'm like, okay, I know what's happening. I think I know what's happening, but like, what does this have to do with the murder? Why?
What I really liked was hearing all of your guys' theories as you were going along. Because I could see you start building a narrative in your guys' head, and I'm like, you guys are getting close.
Yeah.
But then there were some things that you were like focusing on. I'm like, it's going to be satisfying from my perspective for you guys to be like, oh, that's what that was about. Mm-hmm. Like you all had kind of different explanations that were circling the answers.
Stringer saw this scene. We investigated the crime scene when we first arrived, and I don't know, something about it just immediately gave me red flags on the dead guy. Mm-hmm. I saw the scene. I saw his interest in dwarvish shit.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, this isn't like he was specifically killed because of the person he was. Mm-hmm. This isn't like a serial killing where he just needed a thrill kill, obviously. Even though it looked really ritualistic. And that's all been explained. The ritualism of it is very satisfyingly explained, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some important details is that this was a gnome who was very well learned in dwarvish culture. The guys went to his apartment and they found a whole bunch of texts, religious texts, cultural texts, historical texts, mainly focusing on dwarvish lore and everything like that. Also, in my world, dwarves and gnomes are not on good terms, the same way that humans and elves are not on good terms. And so initially, some of you guys thought, well, maybe this was like
Racially motivated.
Nah, there were 4 different times where I was on a completely different track, and I had to be like, Cody, is there even a chance this is the case? You're like, no, this has nothing to do with snake people. I'm like, okay.
Right.
Well, we definitely went down that road where was this to instigate a race war by snake people trying to make a race war between gnomes and dwarves?
The idea was floated that it was racially motivated, but I think the general consensus was it's all a little too clean, a little too simple for that to be the case. And maybe that is intentional, that it looks this way because it was set up that way, or maybe it looks that way by coincidence.
This is a brief, not really, who cares? It's pretty good. Have you ever guys seen Glass Onion?
No.
This is a huge spoiler for the movie, but I don't care. It's great, even you know the spoiler. Literally the main character is frustrated at the end of it because it was so simple.
Yeah.
It was exactly what it looked like, and the movie is trying to trick you the whole time into thinking that it's not, but it is.
I mean, that's kind of similar to Knives Out, too.
That's what I was about to say, yeah.
Same director, same character.
Yep.
Yeah. Knives Out was great.
I love Knives Out.
Anyway, so you guys investigate this murder of this gnome, and you speak with the homicide detective. His name was Bertwin Sandello. He's not having much success figuring this out, so he's brought you guys in to consult for him. You guys investigate the crime scene. You look around. You find some clues, and one of the things you find is a delivered package of meat, now rotten since it's been a week since it's been delivered, from a local butcher shop. And so you guys head over to this butcher shop to ask about the gnome to try and find any information. They don't really have all that much information. The only thing that you guys are able to do is talk to the individual who delivered the meat.
He was a golem.
He was a golem named Dorfel. He works at this slaughterhouse. Now, at this point, you guys didn't know a whole lot about golems. I think Scott had tried to roll a knowledge check to figure something out. He didn't roll very well, so the only thing that he could recall was that golems are manufactured or created by dwarves. Mm-hmm. So that's another interesting link, but not much more than that.
Is manufactured, especially for Levi in the moment, Stringer. I latched on to the word manufacture. I'm like, oh, these are mindless drones that work.
Mm-hmm. And so you, Levi, and Justin's character, Theron, interrogate Dorfel here, and it was really fun because these golems can't speak. Mm-hmm. They don't have, mouths or throats or tongues or anything, so the way they communicate is by slate and chalk. And I bought a chalkboard with chalk, and whenever they had questions to ask, I would write it out rather than speaking.
In that moment, I was genuinely surprised at how much he understood.
Dorfel?
Yeah, like he was able to, we didn't have to dumb anything down. He was able to answer questions that were kind of not necessarily simple, but not necessarily like high concept, but he was able to answer that kind of shit where we would be like, what'd you do? Hey, what does he normally do? Makes meat. I don't think he orders meat and I deliver it to him. Like I was expecting us to have some trouble with that aspect where we'd be like, what does he normally do? And he's like, I don't know. But he felt like a person in that moment.
He definitely had sentience.
Yeah.
He had a mind in there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you learned it at that point, but basically golems are driven by the words in their head. It's called a chem in traditional Hebrew lore and myth.
I think it's him.
Him. That's fine. In my world, it's pronounced chem.
He's him.
Oh.
He's that guy.
Those are the words that are in the box that they put on their head?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe. That might be something else.
Are we talking about real life golem? No.
No, in real life Hebrew.
No, that's a hem. The golem puts the hem in his mouth.
Yep. The words go in their mouth, and that's what creates their life.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. If I'm honest.
I know what you're talking about. I don't think that's the same thing.
Okay.
Anyway, so you guys learn about the words in Dorfal's head and the words in the golem's heads, and that they are based on the words are based on like foundational beliefs that are relevant to belief.
Also, before we left to go investigate the crime scene, the party had split up a little bit.
Yep.
It's sort of kind of like commandments. It's like if you were to put the 10 Commandments, kinda, in a golem.
Right. And it's just kind of a way for them to have a bit of a direction or a moral compass, I suppose. This is how you're supposed to live. But the other important thing about golems is golems must have a master. And so the owner of the slaughterhouse was Dorfal's master, and so for the most part, Dorfal just obeys his commands, as long as they don't interfere with the words in his head. It's kind of a iRobot, Isaac Asimov.
iRobot is where we've been going all this time.
But we find out that some of Dorfal's story isn't making much sense. So you guys note that and then head out. And then where did Aiden go after that? Oh, he was still at the crime scene.
Aiden throughout this whole thing, I'm like, hey, he's supposed to be teaching these guys to become what they're supposed to be in this troop.
Also, I want to hammer home. All of us, minus Stringer, are like there to be wardens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One day, while Aiden was like out training people or like doing drills, he just like noticed that Stringer was there, also doing drills.
Yep.
This man who hadn't signed up anything, he didn't know his name, and he was just there, but he looked enthusiastic.
Yep. And we were hurting for people.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like he's kind of like his goal through this is like, yeah, we got a mission, we want to complete it, but he wants to make sure that everybody gets up to snuff and they're doing things as expected. So like he's trying to teach them like how he expects them to handle things. And we go and investigate this crime scene, and then we talk to the owner of the apartment building, and he's like, yeah, you know what, I'll walk up there with you and investigate
We had already broken in.
Yeah, we had just locked the door and left. And I'm like, Aiden's like, all right, well, you guys go talk to Dorfal. The other two wanted to go back to the watch house and get more information. And left Aiden with the apartment owner while he pretended to search the apartment again and find stuff he had already found.
Yep.
After that, he then tried to catch up and go see Dorfal, the golem.
But after we had after Justin and I's character had interrogated Dorfal, we just like look like, you want to
get a drink?
Get a drink? And he's like, yeah, let's find a bar. And so we look around for a pub. We find one. We were successful, and we're sitting at a table, just chilling out. And Cody says, "Stringer, you hear from the next table conversation bubbling up? This man's talking about, oh, these damn golems taking our derbs." And I literally was like, okay. And Stringer sidles over and just like gets in between these people having a conversation. He's like, oh yeah, these golems, they're such a problem. I hate these fucking golems.
That's such a devil-esque move.
Dude. And he just slides in there and is like getting the energy that they're giving off about these goddamn golems. Like, I'd like to buy you a drink. That'd be nice. And I start throwing money at these people and throwing drinks at them.
One of them's like, hey, I lost my job at the candle factory.
He's like, oh yeah, I lost my job at a butcher shop. Yes, so did he. He's my friend here. And I point at Justin's character. He's like, yeah, he quit in protest because I lost my job to this golem.
And he's just drinking, just nodding along it.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what we should do? We should do something about it.
And I ask him to roll a persuasion check. He rolls like a natural 20.
Obscenely high.
And he convinces all of these disgruntled, like, laborers to, like, rise up and, like, go do some race crimes.
After
let's start a riot!
Some people show up, like, voices are getting elevated. I'm just like, all right, let's go. And we just leave. We leave. Me and Justin's character just go back. We don't, like, rush away. We just saunter away back to the inn that we had bought our rooms at.
This is, like, you can't write this stuff. Like, I didn't have any idea that you would start a race riot in the middle of this campaign. And I couldn't anticipate John sticking around playing pantomime in theater.
Aiden was on our track, and so he goes to the butcher shop, and we found a pub not too far from it.
Mm-hmm.
And he hears a commotion. He's like, I wonder what that is.
I'm gonna follow this.
And he finds this mob heading to a lumber yard. And he kind of investigates this and looks into it and watches them. And they go into this lumber yard, break in. And there's some sort of commotion going on in the lumber yard. And from outside, John is watching this. And then he sees something climb up to the roof of the lumber yard.
No dark vision.
No dark vision, so he can only hear it. And it breaks through the roof of the lumber yard, and then he just starts hearing screams inside. He's like, oh, I wonder what that is.
I full on imagine, like, there's, like, a little bit of torchlight that, like, lights the streets and stuff. So, like, you see small silhouettes of, like, this, like, hulking creature climb up.
And then just
and just go in, and like, you hear it crush in, just, oh, fuck, oh my god!
Yeah. And what I love is that it's literally just Michelangelo's David.
Yeah.
Just fucking murking people.
So he goes to investigate this. He goes into the lumberyard, like, building, the warehouse, and it's just a slaughter going on in here. There's just this 9-foot-tall marble statue with glowing red eyes just tearing these men in half, and apart. And Aiden's like, gotta do something.
Yeah.
At that moment in time, what was your thought when Aiden took action and got his attention?
I thought Aiden was going to get ripped in half. If you tried to stand and fight, I think he would have just killed him.
That's
Probably.
the problem with Rangers, is that they're Dexy. They're like the one Dexy class that doesn't have tricky ways to get away from something.
And so Aiden tries to distract this, for it is a golem, we will soon find out, from killing the rest of the people. Like 3 people make it out who aren't killed, and the golem starts chasing Aiden through the streets. We had like a skill challenge kind of thing where he was running away.
This was the most high octane moment of this. This was the first full session.
You can tell it was good because, like, none of us were participating. You were only rolling, and we were just like, oh shit.
Yeah, everyone was fucking
shit.
Even Justin had his fucking phone down.
Yeah.
It was a really tense moment, and it was really fun and exciting too. And Aiden eventually just barely gets away and runs back to the tavern that everybody was meeting at.
It sees us he gets to the tavern, we're just chilling out.
Everybody's having dinner and, like, relaxing a little bit, and he just shows up just oh god.
I almost died out there.
Fuck. Holy shit, guys.
That's crazy. Are you alright?
Yeah, actually.
Wow, so unexpected.
So then, like, we regroup and we talk about what we learned. You had briefly, before you heard the commotion, you had briefly spoken to Dorful.
Mm-hmm.
What did Dorful say in that moment?
Nothing important.
And Kalisura approaches us. Kalisura had separated and gone to his contacts.
I'd like to make it noted, Aiden never knew who started the riot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Still does.
From that point on, he never knew who started that riot. To this
It could have
day.
been a different riot. You don't know. Kalisura had left to see his contacts. He had contacts in the city that he said knew lay of the land and could help us get around town, know who to talk to, that kind of thing. He comes back when Aiden, shortly after Aiden returns, probably because he was fucking watching and waiting for Aiden to come back. And he says, hey, we got the skinny.
Yep.
We know how these dwarves are making these goddamn golems. They do it on this island in the middle of the lake. The city's right next to it, built on the side of a lake. And they're like, let's fucking go. We're all fresh. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm. So you guys head out. It's the middle of the night, dead cold. You're going across this half-frozen lake, and you find a small abandoned fort on this island. And Kalisura's like, in there.
Yeah.
In there. and you guys head through a hole in the wall, through a kind of interior area. And
Wolfram came along.
Yes. He's just a commoner. He's got, 8 HP? That's important later. Very soon. And Kalisura's like, they're right through this door. And everybody's like, all right, let's do it. And they all rush through the door, and it's just completely abandoned. Nobody there.
Door slams.
And then the door slams shut, and then all of these elves stand up from the battlements on the fort's walls, and it's a kill box.
Yeah.
And everybody just starts shooting arrows down at them. It's a trap. You've been you've been betrayed by one of your own.
God damn it.
And so a fight ensues. Eventually, you guys are able to kill all of the ambushers.
While being ambushed, though, a certain squire gets brutally murdered by what?
By one of the
Fungus.
One, yep.
Someone funguses him and turns him into a mushroom man. And Levi's
he turns him into a corpse.
turns him into a corpse covered in shrooms.
Turns him into a fun guy.
And then that person tries to blink away.
Levi sees a bag of freshly killed blood.
You need an opportunity.
Waste not, want not, okay? And hey, I got a 4th level spell slot, okay? My trigger finger is itchy as fuck. So he rushes over. Turns out he didn't get, bleedy injury, so I had to conjure a dagger and stab him open. But then I was able to summon a demon, a big old monkey.
Yep.
And they were all like, oh shit, that's a monkey.
Yep. And you gave him the instructions. Rip and tear.
Rip and tear until it's done. The elves, though.
Yeah.
And we managed to win. The demon did okay.
Yeah.
Demon tanked a lot of hits.
The other demon tanked a lot. But
John summoned a fire elemental to fight Kalisura.
he opened the door. Or no.
I knocked. Aiden knocked and was trying to convince Kalisura not to do this.
Yeah.
And then Kalisura was like, kicks the door open, fires 2 arrows, like, ha, gotcha, bitch.
It sends their magic hawk at you.
Yeah.
Magic hawk.
Those 3 portions of damage put me down to 6 health.
Yeah. Kalisura fucked you up.
Yeah. Painful.
And then you're just like, okay.
Toss the grenade
throw
in
the
there.
fire elemental grenade in there.
Close the door.
Yep. And so after the fight in the fort is over, I think it was Chris's character was up on the wall, and he sees just this fire elemental chasing an elf towards the beach.
What was that light?
It was the fire elemental.
Yeah.
I thought I could have sworn somebody asked, was that the fire elemental? And you're like, it seemed pretty bright.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
As if to say
It wasn't.
that wasn't the fire elemental.
Oh. Well, I'm not going to say yes if you can't have visual confirmation on it, but it is a being made of fire. So, I thought that was clear. Maybe not. So, the guys subdue Kalisura and interrogate him, and you basically find out that he was part of a terrorist cell of extremist elves who are trying to destroy the human kingdom.
The Silver Blade?
Pale Blades.
Pale Blade.
Pale Blades.
Le Polome.
You mean the
Palams.
terrorists?
Le Palom.
I think one of my favorite parts about playing Aiden was how Reese is a more soft-spoken, passionate person for the most part. He'll be loud when, he can make little quips at people. But, besides that, he's more softly spoken.
Mm-hmm.
Aiden was, a loud, passionate voice. And playing that counterpart was a lot of fun.
Yep. So, I don't know if you guys ever explicitly learned what their motivations were,
Nope.
but essentially, I'm going to spoil some of the stuff
Okay.
that you didn't find out, if you guys are all cool with that.
Absolutely.
Basically, you guys were an operation that was attempting to create law and order in the land, and that's not great for people who want chaos.
Right.
And so they saw this new up-and-coming militia group, the Wardens, gaining some steam, so they dispatched
Planted a seed.
They planted a seed. They dispatched a double agent to infiltrate your ranks, and then they found out that a big contingent of that group was coming to this city, and they're like, hey, we can just take them out in one fell swoop right now. So that's why Kalisura led you away to try and kill you.
I see.
How much? So, like, you put together a pretty big group and put us in a kill box. Like, how much of that would you have been okay with us dying?
Well, I mean, you guys, it's just it was a one-shot, it's backup characters, so I think in general, I'm much less forgiving about killing characters in this way.
And there's a handful of them that are just kind of asking for it.
Yeah.
Like squires that aren't actual characters.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't even have any levels yet.
No.
He's not even people.
He's barely a people.
So
we quash this ambush. We
Wolfram, no!
we quash it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Slice Kalisaurus.
We kind of went a little overboard too. Like, you summoned your demon, and I said, "Fuck it!" I threw in my fire elemental, and like it turned the fight pretty quickly.
I summoned my demon. It was in the moment. I was aware we don't need this.
I also felt like we didn't need the fire elemental.
Like I said, this is an out of character thing. You guys don't know this. Levi Stranger just now got access to this spell, and he hasn't got the chance to summon something better than a couple imps or whatever.
And it just so happened we had a painted Bulgura.
Yep. It just so happened.
Yep.
So we did. He saw the opportunity in dead Wolfram and plucked
Took
that
it.
string.
Yep.
So we killed her. We
Yeah.
killed Kalisura.
I thought he was going to get away, honestly. I didn't know
I
what...
could tell how slightly frustrated you were about how fucking fast monks are.
Yeah.
I did not, because the one thing I did know about the fire elemental is it had 50 feet of movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, he ain't getting away.
I
Fuck
disagree
him.
with how little water matters.
I agree with that. I agree with you.
It was taking 1 per 5 feet of movement through
One
that
per
water.
square movement.
That's horseshit. It's a
That's
fire creature.
That's a bit busted.
Yeah.
Well,
But it's magic fire.
so you guys wrap up in this old fort, in this assassination attempt on all of your guys' lives. You head back, and
Just confused. And we're like, I guess we still have a mystery to solve.
you guys were also thinking, is that part of a
Connected.
mystery?
Yeah, was this connected?
Yeah.
It wasn't.
One elf did get away.
One elf did get away. Yep. You weren't able to track them down.
Yeah.
So, all of these weird, confusing plot threads are cropping up. You guys head to bed, wake up in the morning, and go and investigate this lumberyard massacre.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You guys charm a guard because you're not supposed to be in there. It's kind of a crime scene, and
It also wasn't part of the session, right? Was it? If he did not start a riot, that didn't happen, right?
oh, for sure, yeah, yeah. If you hadn't started a riot, there wouldn't have been a massacre.
I got the name of that guard's mother.
You did.
Yes. And so Aiden and Levi charm their way into investigating this crime scene. They find an interesting clue.
It like the thing that I'm so excited about in regard to this is that mattered. Us going in there gave us a clue that gave us the we found a destroyed golem.
Mm-hmm.
And
The mob had apparently been successful in destroying this golem.
And my Stranger's first thought was, oh, maybe we can take its head and put it on a different golem and learn what it knows. But as I grab the head, it crumbles, and I'm left with a piece of paper
Mm-hmm.
with words.
The guard's like, maybe you shouldn't tamper with evidence.
Whoops.
And so you find a scroll of dwarvish proverbs, very similar to the one you found in the dead scholar's mouth.
Similar but not the same.
Similar but not the same. And so you're like, huh, that's weird. And you guys go try to find Sendello to update him on the clues you found, and you find out he is investigating another murder
Mm-hmm.
at a graveyard. and you guys head over there, and there is another dead body, this time in a freshly dug grave.
Was this a dwarf?
It was a dwarf. Yep. And its head had been smashed in a very similar way to how the scholar gnome's head had been crushed, and in a very similar way to how Aiden had seen this marble golem crush the heads of the men in this mob.
I think Aiden had a nightmare that night about being like that classic nightmare where you're running from Jason Voorhees or fucking whoever, and like
Gallagher,
and like you're not moving anywhere, but you're running away from it. Meanwhile, this golem is just fucking strutting its way over to him.
Oh, too sexy for Milan.
And you guys are investigating this body. You find a greasy substance underneath the fingernails of the victim.
What's the fucking deal with that?
I'll get to it at the end.
Okay.
Well,
I even close?
No. You
I
guys
was so confused.
You got I'll tell you now. You guys got the completely wrong idea.
Yeah.
The idea was that if somebody is fighting back against an attacker, they might get like blood or skin underneath their
Right.
fingernails.
Oh, so I was right.
So, but the thing is, he was fighting back against a golem, which you learned was working in a candle factory, and so he had tallow and grease on his body.
I see.
And so this golem fights back, scrapes at the golem, and he gets...
I guess it's just a
candle
problem.
wax
This is
on
a
his
problem
lips.
of imagination, because I was just imagining a pristine marble golem.
Mhm.
Yeah, same.
I didn't even when we were fighting him in the candle factory.
Yeah,
Although it would be hard to see candle wax on a marble golem.
Yeah.
I don't think I emphasized this point enough, but the golems kind of are byproducts of the industries that they're working in. I mentioned that, like, Dorfel just kind of smells like meat
Yeah.
in a slaughterhouse. And so all of the places that the golems work on, it just kind of rubs off on them. I don't think I explained that very well. I probably could have had Sendello explain, like,
Right.
that's odd. You know, you'd expect to find exactly what I said, like blood or skin underneath the fingernails if somebody was, like, fighting back against an attacker. You guys came to the conclusion that this guy was working in a candle factory.
That's all my fault.
Which, I mean, it leads you to the same place, just the wrong conclusion.
Right.
It puts the candle factory on your radar. So,
Aw, dude.
I mean, it works out.
From John's perspective, I'm like, we go to the lumberyard, and like John's already getting in his own head because I'm like, there's no way Cody planned on Scott causing a riot and that whole scene happening.
I did not.
There's no way he planned on that. So we're gonna go here. We're not gonna have anything here. There's not a prepared piece for this. I'm like, we're gonna go here. I don't think we're gonna get anything.
And
I don't know where we go next.
And you probably kept thinking that when the guard is giving you a hard time. He's like,
Yeah.
no, you can't come
That's
in.
why I didn't really like press it. I'm like, oh, I guess we
Yeah.
can't go here.
Charm
It's-
person.
But it's like room not ready.
Yeah.
Like,
And then-
under construction.
And then, like, there was this panic that set in when we go to the guardhouse, and the guard at the front was like, oh, yeah, Berwin's not here. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What the fuck do I do? John, think about this for a minute. If you were the DM, what would you want your players to do? I'm missing something, and I'm just, like, getting so far in my own head.
Yeah.
While we're there at the graveyard, looking over this corpse, fucking Dorfel waddles up to us, him and his chalkboard, and like Bertwin?
Mm-hmm.
Bertwin's like, look at this guy.
If it hasn't been described yet, poor Dorfel has a gimpy leg.
Yep.
Yeah.
He
I
waddles.
love him. I love him.
We love him now.
I loved him before.
And he walks up with his chalkboard, and like, did he have it written on there already?
I think so, yeah.
And it was just along the lines of,
I killed the
gnome.
old man.
I killed the old man. I'm guilty. Take me
Arrest
in.
me.
That kind of thing.
Yep.
And we're like,
And Bert was like, well, this is it. We got it. I'm like, Bertwin, shut the fuck up, you fucking
He
retard.
admitted to it.
he admitted. I'm like, I agree. He did.
If a criminal admits to a crime, you trust him.
I felt like Aiden
Right.
almost had an aneurysm at that moment. Like, why? Are you all there?
You're supposed to be the professional.
So obviously something's up. This golem is saying, I did it, when our first thought, and we're talking to him, and he's talking, this is I think the first real time that he invokes the term, the words told me to. Like, that, and we really focus on him, like, can we see these words? And he, like, hesitates for a second. And he, like, thinks to himself. And then he bends over and proffers his head to us. And we're like,
I've never heard the word proffer used like this before.
Yeah.
So, like, when Cody described the exact same way, I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean?
And we unscrew the cap on his head, and sure enough, there's a scroll inside, and we take it out and read it. It is word for word the same as the scroll that was found in the corpse's mouth, the man from before.
Yep.
Except
Cody told me this. Or he told us this. And Cody is very cryptic about, like, clues. There's very little hints that have been in previous stuff. Like, even down to the point of, like, there was a battle map fucking 6 months ago that had the slightest hole in it. And we all just wrote it off as, like, oh, that's a little incident. And so I'm like, I see this, and I'm like, different letters are capitalized. And in the middle of it, S, E, and E were capitalized. I'm like,
oh shit.
you guys do your thing. I'm looking at stuff.
So everything was the same, except it literally did say voice of my voice, not clay of my clay, correct?
Sound of my sound.
So,
It's
Same thing,
interchangeable.
Same thing.
but it said sound of my sound or voice of my voice, not clay of my clay, like the note that was placed in the man's mouth said. And so we're like, interesting. And the first place I went was whoever killed this man, this is where I went, whoever killed this man, Matthias, placed new words in Dorfal's head. Look how easy it was for me to just do this. I took his head off and took the words out. And when we did that, he, like, deactivated, like,
Yep.
Power down.
yeah. And look, and I was like, look how easy this was. These words give them life and direction. So somebody could easily just make new words for them. Then is when we start to ask, how do we make new words for them? And we have the idea, okay, these words are making him say, I'm guilty, I'm guilty. So I'm like, let's put in the words that we got from that other golem. And sure enough, I was expecting that, like, the golem housing to just be a housing. The words are the brain. And so I thought when we put the words from that golem that was dead into Dorfal, it would be that golem. But no, it was just Dorfal. He was back to pretty much normal.
He was behaving a little weirdly.
Weirdly.
Like he was confused or something.
Yeah.
His writing wasn't as legible. I was trying to get that across, that it's like the words give them life, but it doesn't make their personality, as far as you could say that they have a personality. Right. But yeah, one of the clues you missed there was I asked for a check that you didn't get because you'd asked about the handwriting, and the thing you missed was that Dorfal's handwriting that was on his slate matched the handwriting that was in the priest's mouth, or the scholar's mouth.
Up.
Yep.
Dude.
That
Oh
would
my
have broken
god.
the whole thing open.
Oh my god, dude.
We're
Look,
idiots.
he brought it all back around. That was one of Reese's first checks ever.
Wow.
What's to match the handwriting? We never even considered that option.
And like I'm like you're looking at the paper right now, and you're looking at Dorfal writing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna give you a check to see if you noticed that they're the same. And you didn't, but you figured it out eventually.
Yeah.
I love the, like, you rolled really low. And Cody's like, okay.
Yeah.
And they just moved on.
Didn't say anything.
So that just means our characters and us as people are just as unperceptive.
I give you props.
Yeah.
Because, like, something that fucking juicy, I would have been like, you can roll with advantage.
So then this idea is like, okay, where I go is someone is rewriting the words or changing the words to make the golems do something else. To compound this, on our way back after conversing with Dorfal, we encounter another golem who's trying to kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Oh, something else you forgot to mention was when Dorfel deactivated for the first time, he dropped a matchstick out of his hand that he had been carrying. And you're like, what is this? It doesn't make any sense right now.
Right now.
Again, the smallest details in the world.
And
Chris was looking at it.
The perception guys, he made us roll perception for the matchstick, for the drop when he deactivated. And the only people who got it were people who rolled like above 22 or something.
I was going to say, I rolled a 20 and didn't see it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so they are able to see him drop a matchstick. He was apparently clutching a matchstick in his hand. And
of course, we hold on to the dumbest details. So, like, Justin, like, looked at it. He's like, this little mark on it. Does that mean anything? And you're like, no.
It's just a piece of it's just a piece of wood.
See, again, where my head immediately went is against his will, someone changed his words. And that little part inside Dorfel just grabbed something to, like, this isn't right. And he just grabbed a matchstick from wherever the fuck he was. He grabbed anything that would have been there. And him dropping it was like his last little please, I'm not me right now kind of thing. But of course that's not the case.
Yep. It does have significance. It's just not that significant. I really enjoyed seeing how your guys' theory evolved. I know I alluded to it earlier. You guys, especially Scott, originally thought that Matthias was the marble golem and that he had done some sort of fell ritual to turn himself into a golem.
The way his body was placed and the words in the mouth, it just felt so magic and ritualistic. Like he magic jarred himself into the golem or something.
And then that evolved and you're like, maybe Matthias is the one changing the words in these golems' head and like they killed him out of retribution or something like that.
Like, my thought process was fully, he tried to fuck with Dorfel's head. And the marble golem just came in and said, not today.
Nope.
Yep. And everything up to this point, also, it's just like, Bertwin's like, all right, yeah, the story doesn't add up, but we just had all these reports that a golem just killed 12 people in the city, and this guy's admitting that he did it. So it's like, what are we gonna do?
And I'm like Bertwin, I was there.
It's not him.
It wasn't him.
I think this is also the conversation where, like, I was just... So much of this... I love this. So much of this was just me thinking, like, what does that mean, though? What about this? And then I think this is where in that conversation where I was like, what if a golem wrote words? Could a golem write... Dorfel writes.
Yeah. And the clue was right there. You didn't know it was the clue because you put the words that were in the priest's mouth in Dorfel's head and he didn't reactivate.
Yep.
Because he didn't have the power to make the words.
I was using detect magic, and those words weren't magic, but the words that, even though they were the same, Dorfel's words were magic.
Yep.
So I'm like, what the fuck is What's the difference?
It's like
I love it.
The clue was there. You just didn't have the information yet.
Yep.
So at this point, this is where things start taking a dark turn.
Yeah.
Like, people can get murdered in a fantasy game, that's fine. But this is where the world building gets really dirty and gritty. And so you guys are like, well, we have a lead. We know the dwarves create these golems. So why don't we go ask
some dwarves?
Some dwarves. And you'd kind of gotten the impression up to this point that dwarves were kind of like lower class citizens up to this point. You didn't see very many.
I think we went back to the butcher and asked who he bought Dorfel from.
You might have.
At this moment in time, we went to the poor district.
Mm-hmm.
But how did we know where to go in the poor district?
You asked some people on the streets.
Okay.
Yeah.
People were all giving you side eyes once you got in there. It's a lot of, like, minority races.
The most racist thing we could have done. It was like, hey, Justin, your character knows Dwarven. Go talk to him.
Proceeds to speak in common.
Everybody's giving you side eyes. Everybody's, like, kind of being a bit antagonistic while you're there. You throw a little silver some people's way, suddenly it gets a little friendlier. And they're like...
We tossed around silver like it was fucking nobody's business.
You guys were like, and they were like, you know, Dorfel's parents are these two dwarves that live down here in the poor quarter. And they direct you to them. And you're like, you guys fixated on that word. You're like, parent. That's an odd way to describe, like, a manufacturer. And you guys head down to this tiny ramshackle shack in this outside of the city in just a little shanty town. It's it's there's snow on the ground, but you know the roof's caving in, the windows are boarded up, and you guys knock on this door, and you get greeted by these two dwarves.
Now might be the time before we get into this. How do dwarves work?
In what way?
How do
The
you?
segs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so when I do my world building, I want my non-human races to be weird and
Particularly
magical.
non-human.
Yes, particularly so elves, gnomes, dwarves. I don't want them to behave like they're just copy-pasted humans. And so dwarves, their child rearing rituals are completely different. It's not necessarily a biological process that they create children with. It's a magical process. And the way that dwarves have children is they create a homunculus out of either stone or ores or metals, and then they supplement that with jewels and gems, and they bury this homunculus in a place in nature, and so many days go by, a gestation period occurs, and if the ritual is done correctly, and the homunculus has enough quality materials in it, a little baby dwarf will crawl out of the earth where it was buried. And that's where dwarf children come from. They literally crawl out of the ground.
They're like sea turtles.
It is kind of like a sea
Oh my
turtle.
god!
It's also a little eugenics-y
Yeah.
because, like, the better materials that is in the homunculus, the better the dwarf is.
What do you mean by the better the dwarf is exactly?
I suppose just like the stronger they are, the more intelligent they are, the better looking
Well,
they are.
Interesting.
I know.
Take the poor district or the poor quarters,
Mhm.
for example. There's a lot of crappy dwarves there because they don't get a lot of material. But then in our earlier portion of the campaign, Miles, Ohio was a dwarf.
But he was not a hill dwarf. He was a mountain dwarf.
Which means you had all the good shit.
He was
Yeah,
better than
he was,
everybody
he
else.
was like one of the only ones left.
Yeah.
And that goes into like why he hated gnomes, because in Cody's lore, the gnomes usurped and kicked the dwarves out of their mountain homes, where all the best materials were to make their children.
Yep. Now they have to, now all the dwarves like live in the valleys, and there aren't good like there's no gold deposits in the mountains. There's no like marble or anything like that. So resources are thin, and the quality of dwarfs has been decreasing ever since they lost their mountain homes. They're like a wilting race, just because their child rearing
Those goddamn gnomes.
rituals like prevent them from creating like noble dwarves.
I want to be known.
I'm Ganata Ganoblin.
I guess it's just part of our group to just claim one person as a racist.
Yep.
And Aiden was this group's racist. So if it's
Proudly.
a competition, John wins because this is now my second racist character in like 2 years.
So, with that bit of world building, you guys go talk to these two dwarves, and you're like, hey, what's up with Dorful?
Yeah. What is a Dorful? Tell me what is Did you make Dorful?
And I was doing a great job with his name the entire time.
Yeah.
At first,
I thought it was in character.
At first, it was just me being an idiot, and then I'm like, I keep fucking this up. I'm gonna make like 2 more jokes. I'm actually Dorful. Dobby, fuck.
I liked that genuinely between Aiden and Levi were like, now is Dwobble Dorful.
Right, Dorful. Are you saying Dwarful?
Dorful.
No W.
No W.
So, let me step in here, get us back on track. Up to this point, everybody you kind of spoke to kind of had like an uneasy feeling about the golems. They weren't very comfortable around them. Icky, yeah. And the dwarves in particular did not like talking about the golems. It was a really taboo subject.
To me,
I
the
love
vibe I
men.
was getting from that was like, I don't want to fully just bare ass look at this and say and say what it is. I'd rather just be like, it's not slavery. They're like robots. But like we had one conversation with a golem, and we're like, oh shit, this guy's like a guy.
This isn't
Yeah.
right.
And I think I was talking with Chris about this last night, and I think you guys came to that conclusion, but I don't think the majority of people have came to that conclusion. I think when we talk about how the other people
We're so
view the
progressive.
golems, they kind of do just see them as machines.
Yeah.
We're modern humans.
And so this is where things get really icky.
Yeah.
Because they mentioned Dorfel to these two dwarves, and like
Immediate reaction.
immediately react. The wife just starts crying.
Let's take a moment here to talk about Godfrey. I know this is a long-winded episode, but let's take a moment here to talk about Godfrey and how it's like, okay, hey, you lead with this because you can talk to him, because you can speak Dwarven. You know, let's start with that. He's like, in common, I'm here to talk to you about a golem slave. Do you know Dorfel?
So I'm playing Godfrey as like he's new to this, right? He's still early in his training. Like he's allowed to be out and have a squire, but he's still fairly new, and things that aren't strictly covered in knight curriculum, which is monster slaying. He's still learning, and so he's looking at Sergeant Lambrecht or Aiden.
Both of those were correct.
As a mentor. And so he's trying his best, but he's not used to it. And so Aiden has to like, come on, dude. Like, previously while we were in the apartment, we had, my character and Elizabeth went to the next door neighbor and talked with them. And then I was telling, Godfrey was telling Aiden the information he got, and was like, that this is awful. You did a bad job.
He's like, great. What was their name?
I didn't ask what their name was.
Okay.
Sir.
And so then when Aiden started investigating the landlord, I took notes as Godfrey, watching Aiden perform this action.
This interview.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem to help, though, because you're pretty blunt with the dwarf family, and Aiden's just like, all right, let me take over. and literally, as soon as that happened, I'm like, can you move the way he treats you? He can't even, you're in mourning, and he doesn't even notice. I'm sorry about him. We should do something about it.
We need to get a picture of you just like making that face saying, we should do something about this.
So you guys talk to the dwarves, and you learn that part of this child making ritual is that the parents have to give part of their soul and put it into the homunculus. They call it the voice in their heart.
The parents of Dwarfel were Mim and Baladin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mim and Baladin. They say that the part of the voice in their heart, which the dwarvish word for soul literally translates to the voice or the words in their heart.
I feel like Phil Collins could make a Disney song about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
weirdly literal.
Yeah.
The dwarfs say that if you complete the ritual, but you don't put a part of the parent's soul in the homunculus, they create a golem.
It's like
all they
halfway to being a dwarf.
They don't have any words in their heart. They just have words in their head.
You should make a whole bunch of Hodors.
You basically get the context that these dwarves were so poor and so destitute that they made a child that they then sold into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
That's at least how they see it.
And they are very guilty about it. Like, especially Mim was real hardcore broken up about it. And it was, honestly, rough.
It was.
So rough.
So, we're all sitting here, and I'm like, man, how the fuck does Aiden feel about this? Because I don't think anybody else has family. And I purposely made Aiden have a wife and kid. Mm-hmm. A 4-year-old daughter.
Stringer, specifically, we had played with this idea. I kind of moved away from it because I don't like how overtly tragic it is. And then you just fucking did it. I don't like how overtly tragic it is that literally your parents sell you
Mm-hmm.
So I was playing around with the idea of that with Stranger, where he would be sold to this almost Jedi-like college of magic people.
Mm-hmm.
But I more like the
Are
idea
you
of him.
Anakin?
It's a little bit.
That
I'm more.
explains the evil now.
I'm more like the idea that I was just a street urchin that this good, genuinely good person saw and was like, I can do the world good by making this kid.
You met Qui-Gon.
I met my Qui-Gon, and my Qui-Gon unfortunately thought he was doing really good, but I need more oversight. I need structure. Poor Stranger.
Yeah.
It's really sad because situations like what has occurred in game happened in real life.
To me?
No,
Oh. To you?
no,
Who?
Just in general.
just
What?
in general.
Prove it.
I mean, I heard about like stories
Yeah.
like about that, and I think that's kind of what part of what inspired this was that, you know, particularly, you know, during the 20th century in some very poor like Eastern European places, where like there was famine and all kinds of just horrible living conditions, people just selling their children just to live. And I kind of wanted to incorporate some of that into my world, and I wanted it to be clear that my world is dirty.
Mhm.
It's grimy, it's filthy, and it's not fun all the
Yeah.
time.
But
Grimdark.
you did such a... I'm going to say my one defense for it now is you did such a good job of building it so that, yeah, it's dirty, but we see the bright parts of it. There's like still this glimmer of hope that goes in there.
And it's also just like it just is how the dice fell.
Mhm.
Like if you had rolled a lot better on what golems are, you would have learned all this stuff a lot sooner.
We would have had to had a brutal conversation with Dorfel's parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would have gone into that conversation knowing what they did, but instead, like throughout all the sessions, you just like all this stuff, information just gets layered and layered, and you're like, is this where it's going? And then you get told this crucial piece of information at a very like emotional climactic moment, and it just like hits.
Damn.
And it's like I can never plan that.
So dwarves just kind of half bake a dwarf, and it turns into a golem. That's what turns out.
And then they sell it for a little bit of cheese.
Yeah, and they're pretty upset about it. But just half baking a golem, it's still something going on in there. I think.
Yep.
I think
Some of them.
for some of them. Well, maybe.
It's hard to tell.
And there's just enough in there for certain individuals,
What if...
certain half-baked individuals, to get some ideas.
What I know Cody said he's going to explain all this, but what if that's what the gnome was doing?
What?
Maybe he was just the one giving them free will.
And then the Marble Man.
And the Marble Man was like, "Stop it."
Why would the
Stop.
Marble Man not like that?
I'll get to it.
He doesn't like
I'll tell you.
He doesn't like his people having free will because he's the king.
Hmm.
And ooh, interesting. Not right, but interesting. So you guys learn about this. You guys decide to meet back up with Bertwin, and while you're walking to the watch house, you see a golem step out onto a roof and jump off.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just something interesting, and I thought that would be something that you would see and something that would happen. But you guys had the resources to prevent it from killing itself. And so you stop it from falling, and you see written on its slate, it says something like, "The old man helped us, clay of my clay, shame, sorrow." And you're like, what is this? This is really weird. And looking back on it now, it seems obvious what it was, but I think at the time you hadn't quite fully processed it. And you guys prevent this golem from killing itself, and it steps back up, and it just tries to get back up
Yeah.
onto the roof.
Yeah, it just that failed. Try again.
So the only way we could stop it is to take its words away.
Yeah.
And so that powered it down, and then you kept going to the guardhouse, and you run into another mob who is trying to destroy a golem.
I
wanna
regret
lay,
this.
I want to lay on that how thick that part was before the mob.
Mm-hmm.
We just learned this really dirty thing where they're selling their kids because they're not fully formed.
Yep.
And then as we're just walking back, like Aiden's already in his own head thinking about like, man, I couldn't imagine selling Annie. Like, I'd feel terrible about that.
And then we see this...
And then we see this golem just try to kill itself.
And, like, in that moment, we're seeing this golem, we're like, okay, so they at the very least can feel enough that this one doesn't want to be alive anymore.
Or they want to off themselves.
This one doesn't want to be alive anymore. And we're like, oh, fuck. Okay.
What does that mean?
What does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you guys find a mob. Word has gotten around about this golem massacring all these people at this lumber yard. And public opinion has shifted drastically. People are no longer just uncomfortable around golems. They're, like, actively hostile.
How would this have worked if, like, those 3 guys didn't live? If I didn't do anything, we just find out fucking 15 people died at the lumberyard.
Right, well, I mean, news would have... Well, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit, dude.
It looks like
No
the fact...
witnesses.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the fact that you
Intervened.
interfered caused all those rumors to spread and
Yeah.
caused all this sentiment. It all comes back to player
You know,
choice.
I don't think the golem would have killed those people if it wasn't for a riot being incited that led to the death
That's
of the
true.
golem.
But I don't think anybody would have known that a golem killed those people
If there were no
Aiden
survivors.
didn't step in.
All right, so it's your two's fault.
Yes.
That's the normal suspect.
There was a
Usual
riot
suspect,
boiling
that's
at
it.
any moment. It could have happened at any time.
So,
The pot was boiling. All I did was tip it.
He played the card. We knew that people weren't happy with golems.
so you guys get to this mob. There are a couple of men with sledgehammers trying to destroy a different golem who's just like, hey, I'm just worth...
I'm worth 103 silver. Anybody want me?
Smash!
And they try... So,
I'm worth 101 silver.
So Godfrey, who has had a very drastic change of heart about what these golems
Yeah.
are and who they are.
He starts off with like, okay, so this is some sort of machine mechanism, animalistic brain thing that does a task. Cool, great. Oh, it can talk and is sentient. And
Aiden's orders, by the way, were just, hey, get up there.
oh, it's
That's all they were.
It's actually just a humanoid. This is very icky. This is bad. Oh, these people want to fuck. No, you're not fucking with this thing.
Yeah.
So
like the dwarves try to justify it, saying no, they don't actually have a soul.
Yeah.
But you can tell
There's
they don't
something there.
believe it.
Yeah.
They don't believe that justification.
So run in there. Justin's character's coming to, and then Godfrey gets into a confrontation.
You just sucker punch a
Cold
guy
just
rock
right
a
in the
dude in the
face.
face.
You try to take a guy's hammer, and he's like, dude, get off. And you're like, fuck you. Punch him in the fucking face.
Well, yeah.
And you guys disperse the crowd. You prevent the golem from being killed. Stranger, again, agent provocateur. He's like, hey, I'm your master now. And then the golem just like taps his slate. And he's like, I'm worth this much. He's like, you got to pay my master. And Stranger's just like, all right, well, follow me. I'm going to go pay your master.
And he starts following me.
And the dwarf
This
and
was-
the golem starts following him.
This was your second of like 3 major fuckeries. Because Aiden's like, I need to fucking get in
Well,
here.
it was all again just a bid to learn something. So with that, we learned this was a golem who said, "My master gave me away. You had to pay my master 103 gold." I'm like, "Who's your master?" And he's like,
Yep. They were getting confused.
Yeah.
Because golem must have a master. That's the kind of like one of the sentiments. And it's like, well, my master doesn't believe that he owns me anymore. So does he own me? Do I have a master?
exactly.
And they can't
Error.
comprehend it. They don't have enough free will to understand that scenario.
Yeah.
They have some. They have a little bit. And they have sentience.
And I feel Scott, it's not Stranger.
Mhm.
Scott feels quite bad for that golem in particular because what in the fuck do we do?
Yep.
What do we do to disquiet that?
That voice in its head saying, "Hey, your master deserves 103 silver because that's how much you're worth. Even though he gave you up, he's still your master. So to get a new master, so we have purpose again."
So I can't just say, "Hey, I'm your master now." He's going to like, "No, you're not. I'm worth 103 silver. You have to pay that to my master." I don't know what to do, I feel bad.
There's a existential crisis lasagna happening, and I feel so much a part of this.
You definitely get the idea that this is in a very moral dark gray area,
Yeah.
and probably for good reason.
Yeah.
Like this is stuff that ought not be meddled with, and there's a reason it hasn't been.
But we are meddling.
Yep. So, you guys go to the slaughterhouse where Dorfel was originally from, and you interrogate the slaughterhouse owner.
And
He
we're going in
seems-
hot because we were told by Mim and whatever
Baladin.
that only the owner or the parent can change the words.
Yep.
And I think it's a good thing we went on this train. I don't think his words were ever changed,
Right.
but we just assumed this was not the way he was acting before.
Mm-hmm.
Something is different. And so we're like, you changed his words. What'd you do? What'd you do, you slaughter boy? And
He's like, I haven't. I didn't
well,
change
I
the
didn't
words.
change the word. I changed the words. They're like, well, he's ours now. We're gonna pay you for him.
And so he writes you guys a receipt, and Elizabeth buys him, and now Dorfel is Elizabeth's.
Yeah. But now because like there is some sort of magical contract happening
Mm-hmm.
where now Elizabeth is magically his master and can command him to tell her things. So we learn from Dorfel the whole fucking story,
And
pretty much.
it's so weird because like he was not around. Dorfel was not around for this interaction. We just showed up back at the warehouse at the guardhouse and was like, "Hey, by the way, Elizabeth's your master." And he's like, "Great. How can I serve you? Like, what can I do?"
Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, you guys go talk to Sandello again. He had Dorfel with him.
It was a cute little scene where he's just Dorfel sitting there in a chair with his feet propped up
Because he's not
They're
tall.
sticking
He's
out.
about the size of a dwarf.
Adorable.
I love
Um,
it so much.
And he fills you in on a little bit more information, and you guys are like, you know, you guys were like, who told you to like admit that you were guilty? And he
Yeah.
says, Clay of my clay, which was kind of a common thing that they had kept
Mhm.
saying. And your guys are like, can you take us to the person who gave you this order? And he doesn't say anything. He just gets up and starts walking away.
So we're like, okay, oh shit, all right, we're progressing.
I'm like,
This is
we-
literally the
we're
plot
going to the
moving
end now.
forward.
This is it. We're going to the showdown against the Marble Golem.
Mhm.
Man, I gotta say, John was like, he just fucking said Clay of my clay again. I'm getting so sick of this shit. I just want a straight fucking answer, Dorfel.
And so he leads you through the snowy streets to this kind of abandoned building and a basement. And you guys go in and you find it's hard, how would you describe it? A meeting place.
Yeah, it was some kind of area where people were things were congregating. But most importantly, we saw a silhouette cut into the wall. In fact, we have a picture.
It's a pretty bad picture.
It's a shitty picture, but I think it fully details what we're talking about here. Well, a silhouette in the wall, suspiciously shaped like our marble friend, and above the silhouette is a crown.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all throughout this room are just like bits and pieces of like these proverbs.
Not necessarily proverbs. So they were all written on top of each other, so it was hard to make out.
Right.
But the effect I was trying to go for was that this is where a bunch of golems met.
Mhm.
Spoiler to jump ahead, and they were having a conversation with each other on the walls.
Oh my god, we're fucking idiots.
Okay.
How did we not pick up on that?
Yeah, of course. Well, I
Wow.
figured they had their slates.
Oh, that's true.
And but they like it was written in like paint or chalk or charcoal or just like they just scratched into the stone. Was all of these things that these golems were saying to each other. Things like, you know, thou shalt not, and then it'd get cut off, or woe unto the masterless, rage of the creator, lead us not, you know, and all of it just gets
a lot
cut
of
off.
these were the voices that were in the Marble Golem's head.
No, these were not what was
Okay.
in the Marble Golem's head. And
Most poignantly, though, in the center of this room was 12 matchsticks.
11 and a half matchsticks.
11 and a half. One was shorter than the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And when we put them together,
when you put them together, it just so happens the one that Dorfel was holding is the other half.
Yep.
So, I saw you drop them, and I noticed one was shorter. I'm like, oh, it's like drawing lots. I doubt that's what he meant. Like, quite literally, I'm like, I doubt, he probably just broke.
The one time we ignore the key detail.
You guys got there, though.
Yeah, we got there.
Yeah.
It turns out that a group of golems had gotten together and made their own clay of my clay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this was the marble golem. Did he provide the marble? Matthias.
No. He did not.
What the fuck
Then
is
where'd
his
they get the
connection?
gold?
There was a golem working in a stonemason shop.
He stole it.
He stole it.
Ah.
And the golems carved out of the marble their king. That's why one of the golem at the stonemason shop
I love
killed himself.
Dorfel.
Ah, okay.
He was part of this conspiracy.
Yeah.
And the reason that they were killing themselves was they understood that their creation had gone awry.
Yeah.
It was a real Frankenstein's monster thing, and they couldn't live with the shame of what they had done. Because golems aren't supposed to kill. They're supposed to be good creatures.
Then we just told Dorfel, fuck you, no, you live. You're living through this, buddy.
Well, see, that was the thing, is Dorfel was chosen as the 12th member to take responsibility for what they had all done.
They did draw lots.
They drew lots, and Dorfel was the odd one out. The other 11 tried to kill themselves, and Dorfel was supposed to take the blame.
Incredible.
That's beautiful.
And
I feel so bad for our little man.
I don't.
and so Dorfel is like, I know where the marble golem is. And he leads you to a candle factory that the marble golem has been working in. Because even though the golem... an important thing to consider is that the golems are almost living things. And so they almost understand the way living things are supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't quite understand. And so even though this king was supposed to be their liberator and their leader, it was still ingrained in them that the golems had to have a master.
Mm-hmm.
And so they found him a master.
Sorry.
And it was the owner of this candle factory.
Mm-hmm.
And so you guys head over to this candle factory and find the golem there. And he's just working, making candles. Not killing anybody, and through some contrivances, Dorfel brings the owner of the candle factory into the factory floor, and at that point, Strenger summons a demon on the factory floor.
All right, we're going.
And then Justin's character hits the factory owner with a flying knee, knocks him unconscious, and then there's the final fight with this marble golem.
Dude, so from the beginning, I was like, alright, Aiden's wanting to teach everybody, give them the direction, the push of where they should be going. So, like, I made a active choice to say, for this fight, where we clearly could prepare how we wanted to say, do what you want to do, I'm going here.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't telling anybody what to do, because I wanted to see how everybody reacted on their own.
And so the fight is not too exciting.
The first thing we did was attack a civilian.
Yeah, you guys did knock that guy unconscious.
We weren't sure if he was a combatant or not.
Right.
What in the gods? Gone.
By the...
And I think one of the leading through lines throughout this whole mystery was that the humans and the masters are unawares of what their golems are doing.
And before the fight started, and we sent Dorfel off to do his thing, he wrote on there, what did he write exactly?
He said, "Clay of my clay, I know what must be done." Because you guys asked him, "Are you okay with what we're about to do?"
Yeah.
Yep.
And
it's still there.
Yeah.
So the fight starts, and the golem immediately grabs the demon that Levi summoned and throws him into a vat of molten wax.
Incredible.
And I was so hoping that he would grab one of you guys and throw you in a vat of molten wax.
He almost did.
So it comes to Dorfl's turn, and Elizabeth, who is his owner, tells him, "Hey, Dorfl, you need to get out of here." And it comes to his turn, and he just looks down at the slate written there, "I know what must be done," and he just taps it, and he squares up against the marble golem, who is like
Standing side by side with a demon.
right. And Dorfl's like 4 feet tall, and this marble golem is like 9 feet tall,
Yeah.
and he just comes in swinging. And like one of the few things that can hurt the golems is another golem. At least in terms of like full power. And so Dorfl just starts laying into this guy. But he also gets hit, and it destroys his
I was full on
arm.
expecting one hit, gone.
Gone. Yep, same.
It destroys one of his arms, it crushes his gimpy foot, and he's just like crawling to try and right his sins. By destroying this marble golem, and eventually you guys do. Eventually, it's the marble golem's last turn, and it goes to finish Dorfl off once and for all. It was going to just slice the top of his head off, and he was going to be dead. But Godfrey just happens to have a reaction that he can use where he gets a free attack on anything that is going to attack something else. And it's just enough damage to kill the marble golem.
To further elaborate on it, it's so perfect because the marble golem's first attack was on Justin's character, who was just outside of Godfrey's reaction range to shield.
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't use his reaction that moment, saving it for that opportunity to attack it when it
God
attacked.
damn.
Not Wolfram.
Dorfl.
And so Godfrey basically smites the marble golem and shatters its head, and out from its head flows just hundreds of little pieces of paper with all of this writing on them. And they are different from the normal writing that you've seen from the
Disparate
golems.
scraps is the way I describe it.
Mm-hmm. All written in different handwritings, in different ways, but they don't have the same sentiment as the parables and the proverbs in all the other golems' heads. In these, they're almost like requests or almost pleas.
Yeah.
Things like, lead us to freedom, treat us fairly, peace and justice for all. That, rule us wisely.
Wow. Now that I'm thinking about it, I know you said Frankenstein's monster kind of thing, but like, also, I'm getting this weird, like, Thanos vibe a little bit, where it's like, he's the only one willing to act on what he feels like needs to be done for them to get their freedom.
Is that what was happening, though?
Well, we're about to find out.
I hope.
It's also like Ultron, in a way.
It's like a myriad people.
Yeah.
So, after the battle, you guys interrogate the factory owner. He doesn't know anything. He's shitting
just
in his
just as clueless as the slaughterhouse guy.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Did Aiden actually do all that damage?
Yeah. Well, even with the magic, it was normally immune to all non-magical physical damage. And so I added resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing you for magical damage.
Okay.
So yes, you were doing a lot, but not as much as you thought you were.
That being said, I was doing way more than I thought I was going to.
So eventually you wrap up here, you go back to Bertwin's office, you explain the whole situation, and kind of wrap up from there. Elizabeth and Aiden go back and talk to Dorfl's parents, saying that they should be, proud of their son and what he's done. Yes.
Who was following us?
I don't think we were allowed to know.
Yeah, I don't think you would know.
Oh, you're not going to share that part?
I don't think I will.
Was it the elf that got away?
To be continued.
Maybe.
You bitch.
He was told, is all we know. They were told, I should say.
You get something clarified that the creators of the golem put the initial words in their head, but once they're sold off, only the master can change the words. You guys originally thought that his parents could rewrite Dorfl's words. That's not really how it works.
It would have been cute.
It would have been cute. But again,
the sentiment.
but the parents, they just had too much shame. They had too much guilt. An interesting parallel theme about their creation.
Shame sorrow.
And with Elizabeth being Dorfl's owner now, she was the one that had the ability to change the words in Dorfl's head to
Make him his own.
make him his
Also-
own master.
While we were there to fight the marble golem, the one that we saved from the ensuing riot just kind of followed us around until we had receipt showing that we purchased it.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool.
Wait, is that what's happened?
That was what had happened.
Do
yeah.
we have receipt?
We had receipt for Dorful.
No, I mean for this one, for the other one.
No, not for the other one.
No, yeah, not for that one.
So like, that's what I was saying is I'm sad for him. What the fuck do we do?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, at that point, you guys wrapped up, and in the morning, you left the city. Job completed. Done and dusted.
I got 2 eye rolls, maybe 1 actually, when we celebrated the end and all that stuff, and then like Aiden walked out in his kind of edgy way. He poured one out for Callie Sora,
Yeah.
and Justin just, ugh. And he's like, I'm just sitting here. I'm like, oh yeah, if it can't be a racist joke,
So, would you like to hear all the behind the scenes
Yeah.
stuff?
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff you missed. Because you got...
Here's how it could have happened.
but here's how it really happened. You guys got about 85% of the way there.
Okay.
So overall, good. You got all the
We
good
got a
messages.
B.
Oh, by the way, I forgot about this. This was a really heartfelt sentiment that I was really happy that I got to do. I was hoping it would be with Dorfl's last breaths. He would say this, but after the battle, Dorfl is just broken and busted, and he asks for his slate, and he just. Everybody's asking if he's all right, and he just writes, "The words in the heart cannot be taken."
I was like, oh.
If you died with that.
shoot him in the head after that. I really thought about old Yeller in him.
Yeah.
Like, I really like the one time where it felt like, oh, I could have got away with this. When you said like you're being followed, I'm like, I want to climb onto the top of something. And just no way he saw me. I got like a fucking 30 on my stealth check. Just
Yeah.
and then there goes Dorful.
Look at the rabbits, George.
Down goes Dorful. Down goes Dorful.
So, here's all the behind the scenes stuff.
Mhm.
The marble golem Diamo killed Matthias.
Mhm.
There was a phrase that I kind of got uttered a couple of times, rage at the creator.
Mhm.
And so the reason Diamo, the marble golem, was going out killing people was like I said, the golems kind of understand life, but they don't really. And so they thought they could understand the way in which dwarfs are made, which is why they spoke with Matthias. He had the knowledge about how dwarves are made, and they asked him to help them make a golem. But Matthias isn't a dwarf. He only kind of understands the words, and so he was the one that wrote all the words for the golems. And put them into Diamo's head. And then, if you'll remember what you're supposed to do with the homunculus after that, after you make the homunculus, you're supposed to go bury it out in nature.
Right.
In a beautiful place, I think.
They put it on the pedestal.
That's where they sculpted it.
Okay.
But, again, they don't understand the ritual all that well, and so they go to the graveyard, find this dwarf gravedigger, and they're like, hey, he digs holes. And so they bury the homunculus in the graveyard, which is probably the worst place you can bury the
Lots
homunculus.
of negative
So
energy.
it's Pet Cemetery.
Yeah, and so the golem comes alive, but it's tainted by all of these imperfections in the ritual. And for the ritual, and the golem just put way too many words
Right.
in its head. It couldn't figure all of them out. It was pulling it in a dozen different directions.
Motherfucker was like Legion.
It was almost schizophrenic. And so it started lashing out, raging at its creator. And so it went and killed Matthias, who wrote the words in his head, and then it went and killed the dwarf at the graveyard, who was also part of the ritual.
Rage of the Creators.
Yep. But then it was also, it had to obey the words in its head to protect the golems.
Sorry, wait, why did it kill Matthias?
Because he had written the words.
He was one who wrote the words? Okay.
Yep. And so it goes to the lumberyard to try and protect this golem, and it just completely goes way too over the top about it. Yeah, I think that's...
Didn't do a whole lot of protecting. Did get a vengeance thing going on.
Yep.
I love the owner of the candle shop factory, where he was like, I don't even fucking want it, man. I didn't even fucking want it. It just makes all the candles. It ruined my business.
He's so good at making candles.
Just get rid of him. I don't want him anymore.
And we're just like, dude, sell the candles.
What was your game plan?
Huh?
What was Stringer's game plan there?
I don't want to see this golem around us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
If we have this golem master, that's a mercy.
I see.
And it quick and easy, boop, boop, he buys you. And I'm like, all right, he's your guy. And I was hoping that me just saying that, like, being officious with it, having a receipt of purchase is enough to go like, yeah, he's your master now. Look, it says so right here.
I thought you were trying to get him alone to kill him.
Why would I kill him?
For more blood? You just summoned your demon. You just summoned your demon.
You know how easy it is? What do I think? You think I'm going to summon a demon like in the next 24 hours too?
Yeah, but I feel like it's even better if you get to do it right in front of every other player's fucking face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I went hard at him because, again, we didn't know at the time. We didn't know.
I also just love that. Like, I love it when our characters butt heads because we've always been good buddies.
Yeah.
So, like, when our characters don't align well, that's probably the first time that we've actually argued in character as our characters.
I
just said the same thing twice.
we didn't know. So I was coming hard at him like, okay, dude, are you the one telling this golem to kill people? And he's like, what? The one that makes candles?
No! I tell him to make candles.
And he's so good at it. He's so good at making
I had
candles.
to fire people.
Oh.
Meanwhile, the guy who died in the riot because he got laid off at the fucking candle shop. Let's kill him for the candle golem. Oh my
all
god.
circular.
He's like, oh, you!
If I had listened to him, he could have been like, this fucking marble golem is stealing my job.
Too busy.
Is that real? Would you have dropped that hint about the marble golem?
Yeah, well, I think I think the only hint I would have given was that he got laid off at the candle factory, just to seed that thought in your guys' head.
What's your golem look like, bud, that took your job?
Dude,
Let's go fuck it up right now.
I know you have more stuff that you want to tell us that we missed, but I really thought during that session, I'm like, oh god, this is a whole they took our jobs thing. Like, what?
Just very heavy-handed
is it this
allegory.
simple? This is what we're doing?
Automation.
No. This has to do with the fucking birth cycle of a fucking golem.
The morality of selling children.
I've kind of peppered in all the stuff that you kind of missed throughout the episode. So, but yeah, I think the biggest thing you missed up was you didn't understand the significance of the Gravedigger.
Right.
We definitely missed a lot on that.
So,
that Gravedigger died, and I'm just sorry, Chris. But I know you've talked a lot. That Gravedigger died, and I'm just like, I'm like, Bertwin, do we know who this is? He's like, I think he's the third shift guy. It's like, great, can you confirm that for me? No. Awesome.
Like
You're fucking
his
useless.
face is smashed in.
His, like, reticence to be sure, and he was so ready to say, this is the Gravedigger. We just assumed it was Gravedigger. We're like, no, it fucking wasn't.
Yeah.
Another thing that I kind of forgot to mention was you guys figured it out. I think I just told you. But the significance of the words in Matthias's mouth was that,
Yeah.
again,
Oh, yeah,
the
forgot.
golems,
Oh, yeah.
they're living, but they don't really understand living things. They're just a little, like, 15 degrees off. And so, Dorfel finds Matthias dead
He had
after
ma-
being killed
he
by
had
the...
been making a delivery from the butcher shop.
He was making his delivery, and he finds Matthias dead after Diamo, the marble golem, killed him. And he sees a, motionless body, and he's like, oh, he must have just lost his words.
So he writes the only words he knows.
The words in his head, because he's like, that's what gets me, that's what makes me alive.
Yep.
And
That's
so,
what makes me wake up every day.
and so he tries to put the words in Matthias's head, and it doesn't work.
And that's why it said clay of my clay, because that's how Dorfel understood it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, man.
Uh,
I hope that, so these last couple sessions really helped me just, I'd already kind of gotten into Aiden's head and, what he would be like. But, now that Dorfel is going, well, by the way, Dorfel's going back with us.
Yeah. He's ours forever.
Mm-hmm.
I really want him to just be, best buds with Annie.
oh, yeah.
I want
Aw.
Annie to just love him and, come up to the warden area and just, play with him while he's a secretary.
Who?
His daughter.
Aiden's daughter.
Yes.
I
But-
would love that so much.
The last thing that I was hoping Elizabeth would figure out, I don't think it worked, was that the receipt of purchase. I wrote in such a way that if his master, Elizabeth, who was the owner of the receipt, put it in Dorfel's head, that's what would have tipped it.
Damn it.
Oh, he was trying to pick up. Andy was trying to read into it too,
Yeah.
but he was trying to read into it the wrong way.
Yep. So that's why I kind of mentioned that a couple of times, was the receipt. But I think, in my head at least, Elizabeth would have figured that out, and, the last scene I was hoping for this session to be, and this whole story to be, would be, Elizabeth putting the receipt in Dorfel's head, him understanding that he is the bearer of his receipt of ownership.
And then
He
trying to
owns
kill all of
himself. Golem is his own master. And Elizabeth would say something like...
Bobby's free.
Elizabeth would say, what do you want to do, Dorfel? And he would say, I want to rest.
Oh. I want to kill
But he
snakes.
doesn't get to sleep at all.
So...
Well,
Or did he want to die?
he just wanted a life free from the endless toil of labor.
good thing he's gonna be a fucking secretary.
We're good people. We don't pick up on messages well.
That's okay.
That was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We're gonna kill snakes.
Now we're killing snakes.
How do you guys feel about that?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm upset with you.
What'd
You
do?
unlocked counterspell.
Yeah.
You unlock counterspell, and me and Justin have both talked, and we're like, dude, we're fucked.
What kind of good wizard doesn't take fucking counterspell?
I get it, but there was an agreement that happened. I was like, I could take counterspell, and Cody's like, if you take counterspell, I start counterspelling.
I gotta get action
I'm
cards.
like, okay, I don't want counterspell anymore.
Oh. We're way long.
Yeah.
But this was a lot of fun. We're at 2 hours.
Hell yeah.
God damn.
It's burning up in here without the AC on.
I feel great.
I actually feel alright too.
It's
Oh,
only
wow.
74.
I definitely
outside.
picked the wrong outfit.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm layered up.
Yeah,
We're
you
not
have a
naked,
hoodie
though.
on.
let's do the traditional, we'll end the podcast.
Root beer!
We end the podcast.
Dorfel, no!
We sing the podcast song. Oh, I need a bottle of double buff. It's in the buff, actually. That's a lyric. And that's also a lyric. And it goes like this. And then we watch my mouth, not my eyes. We watch like this. And we talk like this. And we keep saying things like this. Bye.
Bump it about up.